I just caught with that.
All right.
All right.
We're live at Divine. Shalom, shalom. It's Robert Daniels, first one in the gate there. Says he says I'm almost done with my mug of coffee, and also had a coffee protein drink. There you go. All the coffee, the better, brother. And if we can just throw some protein in there as well, even better. There's Miss Fariba. Shalom, shalom. She says hi, hello everyone. Some butter in the coffee. I never had that.
It's like keto.
Yeah, it's like keto coffee. Yeah.
Or like olive oil.
In a replacement of cream or milk?
Yeah.
Or is that in addition to?
No. Well, the whole point of keto is to stay away from carbs as much as possible. You want to get your good fats in. So, right. So, butter has good fat. Well, people who are on the people who are doing it count it.
People with more
I hope
than 10
so.
fingers.
That's funny. All right.
If you're gonna say that, you gotta say the birthday man today.
The birthday, the day of birth.
Yes, it's Jonathan's
Mr.
birthday.
Jonathan, the non-favorite one of the Messiah. So, how many trips around the
Moon?
or no? I said what say trips around the
Trips around
moon?
the sun.
Good Lord.
Trips around the moon, that'd be tough. I don't think we do that.
Yeah,
in any of the
that'd be a whole nother model there. Let's start some more controversy. So, how old are you today, son?
37.
37 years old.
I'm trying to get to the point where I can be respected. It's like if you're in your low 30s, they're like, it's a young whippersnapper. That's what he's talking about. So
Yeah.
I think I'm in that age now where people are like, you know what? We'll at least give him an ear.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
we'll-
listen, but we'll
We'll listen to you a little bit.
What's year? Well, hopefully both.
So, I hope everybody's having a blessed day. Jonathan, go ahead and get us started with some prayer, brother.
All right, let's do it. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the day you've given us. Thank you for another Sabbath. You've taken care of us, protected us, and provided for us one whole other week where we've made it from last week to this week. And I thank you so much for that. We forget all the little small ways to thank you and to remember you and what has happened, for all the safe driving, for the houses not catching on fire, any kind of crazy stuff that can happen in the world, that you were watching over us and taking care of us. And I thank you for our jobs, our lives, our families, all the ways that you've shown favor to us undeservingly. And I just thank you for this group, for the Vine as a church, and for the study we're about to do. I thank you so much that you've given us scriptures to study, to learn, to ascertain information, and to be better believers, to walk and talk like your son, the Messiah, who came to earth and showed us the proper model. He did his best with what he had, and we're called to do the same. I just thank you for everything that you've done in our lives, everything that you'll continue to do. For all these things in your son's holy name, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen, amen. Shalom, Miss Cleveland. Says Shabbat Shalom. And howdy, y'all. Howdy, y'all.
Yeah, talking about the word, or I guess it is a word, y'all. But
Yeah,
it just-
you and all.
Yeah, you all. I was talking to our neighbor, who
Yeah.
moved from north to here, and she says, I'll never say y'all. And I said, you live here long enough, you will. I said, what do you say? I go, do you say you all, yous, you guys, you? I said, you'll eventually say y'all. And she told me never. Oh, and she also said she'll never eat grits. And I was like, you
Well,
will.
lesson in life I learned: never say never.
Like you've eaten corn, you've eaten grits, so
There you go.
you don't really have a choice in that one.
There you go. And then Miss Cleveland, you see that in there? Miss Fariba, she said, oh, happy birthday, blessed one. And then Miss Cleveland says, happy birthday from all of us to you.
Happy birthday. Gracias, senor and senoritas.
Their little man's walking now.
Got Bowman 82 in here. It says Shabbat Shalom, dudes and dudettes.
I'll take the dude category.
There you go.
Sort of.
He just woke up.
All right, we ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right. We're in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. That is the first book of Corinthians and the 10th chapter of said book. All right. Chapter 10. For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. Nevertheless, with most of them, God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now, these things took place as examples for us, that we might not desire evil as they did. Do not be idolaters, as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and they rose up to play. We must not indulge in sexual immorality, as some of them did, and 23,000 fell in a single day. We must not put Christ to the test, as some of them did, and were destroyed by serpents, nor grumble, as some of them did, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages has come. Therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you that is uncommon to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. I speak as to sensible people. Judge for yourselves what I say. The cup of blessing that we bless is not a participation in the blood of Christ. The cup of blessing that we bless, is it not a participation in the blood of Christ? The bread that we break, is it not a participation in the body of Christ? Because there is one bread, we who are many are one body, for we all partake in the one bread. Consider the people of Israel. Are not those who eat the sacrifice participants in the altar? What do I imply then? That food offered to idols is anything, or that an idol is anything? No. I imply that what pagan sacrifice they offer to demons and not to God. I do not want you to participate with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. Shall we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? All things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. Let not one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor. Eat whatever is sold in the market without raising any question on the ground of conscience. For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. If one of the unbelievers invites you to dinner and you are disposed to go, eat whatever is set before you without raising any question on the ground of conscience. But if someone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice, then do not eat it, for the sake of the one who informed you and for the sake of conscience. I do not mean your conscience, but his. For why should my liberty be determined by someone else's conscience? If I partake with thankfulness, why am I denounced because of that for which I give thanks? So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Give no offense to Jews or to Greeks or to the church of God. Just as I try to please everyone in everything, I do not seeking my own advantage, but that of many, that they may be saved. This chapter is awesome.
So we can eat whatever we want. Yay!
That's what I heard.
All right, what you guys got?
So looking at verse 4, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they were drinking from the spiritual rock which followed them, and the rock was Christ. Pretty much talking about manna, right? And then like how wine was the blood, in a way, almost communion. But then again, we're supposed to eat the bread of Christ, which means take the word in every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And drink and all that. So that's around kind of what that's talking about in a way, not necessarily communion. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, I don't think there's communion in the Bible at all, but
Yeah,
not this
yeah.
chapter either. It's definitely going into the Passover conversation of take this bread, take this wine. He's literally just bringing up Passover meal, like almost verbatim. I forgot which verse that was exactly, but
So could this be where people are taking that time to do communion?
verse 16 and 17, the cup of blessing that we bless is not participation in the blood of Christ. Is it not? And then is it not the body as well with the bread? So yeah, he's literally just saying you're doing when you're doing Passover, you're involved in the story.
Yeah. So to add a little bit more to that, when we go into what they call the communion, from what my understanding on this is that instead of us looking at it from, like Jonathan was just talking about, a place of this should be bringing us back to the Passover meal. This should be bringing us back to the Father's feast days. But instead, what the church has adopted, and I'm going to go all the way back to the Roman Catholic Church, in adopting what they call communion, is taken away from. They're actually adding to or taking away and adding to what the scriptures are saying. It's taken away from the understanding of, hey, by the way, when he was saying this, this wasn't just the Last Supper. And unfortunately, throughout Christianity, that kind of has been a blanket statement for so long that people, they look at it, oh, this is his last meal before his execution. Right. Literally, it's like, his Last Supper with the boys. That's cool.
Chicken wings and celery sticks.
But see what chicken wings, celery, yeah. And so what they're missing out on is the fact that no, it actually says in all four Gospels that they went in preparation for the Passover. They went to the room. They spoke to the guy. Hey, by the way, even in their conversation with the Messiah, they're like, hey, where do you want us to go to prepare for the Passover meal? Oh, thank you for asking. By the way, this guy you see over there walking with water on top of his head, carrying a water jug, go to him, say the master says of this, and then you go through the whole story. And you realize that for whatever reason, a long time ago, this was glossed over. And it's not even picked up as this is the Passover meal. And it's because the church, unfortunately, has been so separated away from the Father's feast days that now they've made up this thing called communion. And where I believe in the, I don't need that. Where I believe in the, you're messing my brain up now.
Church calls it communion.
Right. The church calls it communion, but what they've done is they've taken it and turned it like, the Catholic Church has turned into, this literally becomes the blood of Christ. Right. This literally becomes, the bread becomes the body of Messiah. And they're taking and adding to the word. It's like, no, it doesn't say any of that. This is symbolic. When Yeshua says it, that's him saying it. Hey, take this bread. This is my body. Take this and drink this wine, for the remissions of sin, all these different things. But the church has come in and so watered this down that everyone thinks, and we used to do the same thing. We used to do every first or fourth Sunday is Communion Sunday. Like certain churches they have a set time, or every 3 months or whatever it is, they have a set time of and I knew the one church we went to, nothing against the church, it's a great church, but we already knew that, especially when I walked in, I saw all the round containers with the lid on it with all the little juices in there, the little cups. Oh, that's right, the day's communion, whatever. And we get the little plastic wafer that
Well, now they just pass the cup with wafer on top, and you have to peel.
Well, that's the thing, man. Streamline. We did that.
Yeah.
When we first started our church, before we came into Torah, we did the same thing where it's like, I said, we got to do communion. That's my first thought. I didn't know any better. So I remember going online and buying a box of communion drinks that had the little wafer already at the top of it. You just peel that off and you peel the next one. And then you come to find out the reason why I got such a good deal on it because they're already expired. I'm like, ew, what?
Well, what's funny about that is I went to a church locally, so I won't name it, but they actually had regular bread, like loaf bread, like a big
Pitched off.
Yeah. And at first I was like, oh, okay, you broke the bread and it had the wine. I was like, that makes sense. And then you kind of go back and you realize
hands on it.
Well, one, that's gross. But whenever you talk about the communion, and when we know that it's like 100% guaranteed scriptural based Passover. At Passover, they would have never had regular bread. So then now not only are you doing communion, which isn't Passover, but now you're eating leavened bread and you're supposed to be having unleavened bread. So you're just messing the entire thing up. And at least those little cracker wafer styrofoam things, at least it's unleavened.
Yeah, there it can't be. That's why I call it plastic, man.
Yeah.
It's like edible styrofoam.
It's shiny.
Yeah.
I don't know much
You can, like,
else.
rub it. But yeah, so it was just interesting to see, like, when you're wrong, and no offense to anybody if they're still doing communion, but if you're doing something that's not biblically based, then now you're in the realm of making up your own rules. So then you can do whatever you want. There's no who's going to come in and be like, you're doing this wrong, and you're like, based on what verse? Well, the fact that you're doing it based on what verse. So then I think that's where it can get dangerous in the modern world, is a lot of people just take tons of liberties, because what else are you supposed to do? You have to. You're making it up. So what do you do on a Sabbath? Oh, we go out to eat. Well, but the Bible says that's a rest day, and you're not supposed to cause anybody to work. But I don't keep the Sabbath because of Jesus is a Sabbath. So you make it up to make it up to make it up. Well, 10 layers down, you're no longer even near the Bible. You're in cultural religion. That's what you're in. This is what's culturally acceptable. This is how we dress and eat and whatever. And it's just weird how that process works.
Well, looking at verse 5 and all that, where it talks about, nevertheless, with most of them, God was not well pleased, for they lay low in the wilderness, and how some of them didn't make it. And that's going to be like today, right? I mean, what was then is almost now. We have people who, like you were just saying, at church do all that kind of stuff and still don't make it.
I like verse 6. These things, so everything before it's talking about the people of Israel leaving Egypt, which is crazy. I didn't reading through the New Testament again, kind of with like my eyeballs all the way open. Everything's just Old Testament references. Well, Stephen, let me tell you about the entire Old Testament before I die. Paul here, he's like, let me explain to you how the children of Israel were in the desert and left Egypt, and they were under the cloud, they went through the sea, they drank the water, they did the bread, they did the wine. Oh, okay, so now we're talking about Exodus, we're talking about Passover, we're talking about Shavuot, we're talking, everything is just building of all this information that's just Old Testament. And Paul's like, what do you want me to tell you? I'm not making stuff up. So these things took place as an example for us, and I love that Paul's saying in a lot of church mentality, it's Paul's done away with the law. So then all the Old Testament stuff is relevant. It's interesting to read. It's good material, but it's not really applicable. We really have to apply the New Testament stuff. Where Paul's like, no, that's the example. That's how we know what to do. That's how we know what we're supposed to do. That's that we follow that direction, not this. I'm not making a new direction. I'm not giving you advice.
Aren't we supposed to learn from their mistakes and all that, whatever they did?
Mhm.
They were the examples of bad, and
Right.
don't do this.
Yeah. Verse 9, we must not put Christ to the test. So the word Christ, it's in some manuscripts, some of the older ones, it's also Lord. So it's interesting. The word Christ doesn't mean Jesus. Like the word, like Christ is what Savior? Is that right?
Is it Messiah?
Or Messiah? It doesn't mean literally like his name is Jesus.
Anointed.
Anointed. Thank you. I was saying, I know it's not. It doesn't mean his own name. So when we read Christ, sometimes we have to be careful, because you know how Lord can be used multiple different ways for different entities or different rulers, but also Christ can be used for multiple people. Because if you're an anointed one, technically all kinds of people are Christ. They're just not Jesus, Yeshua, the Christ. That's why those have to go together. You can't just say Christ and you immediately know that's Jesus. Now it's been used so often and frequent for Jesus that we don't really ask the question. But the word Christ itself doesn't automatically imply Jesus. So then when we go back here and he's like, well, wasn't Christ in the desert? Well, do we think Jesus, the Messiah, was walking around in the desert with them? Or was it an anointed one like an angel or some other, or Moses, for instance? So it's interesting to really play that thought process out, because there's more to the layers and levels before you just assume it's just Jesus the whole time.
Something new. I didn't know that.
His last name. It's Jesus' last name is Christ. Mary and Joseph Christ, Jesus Christ, James Christ,
Is his middle name Age?
Jude Christ.
Where did it come from?
I have no idea.
Probably.
But yeah, I just think that's something that if you guys haven't heard that before, I don't think every single use of Christ that's been translated into Christ, as modern translations go, always refers back to Jesus directly. just for your consideration as your humble servant.
About 23, am I jumping too close?
Fine.
Yes, but whatever you want to.
Go ahead and do this one right here.
Yeah.
All things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful, but not all things are. Just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I can't
Well,
go eat drywall. I will regret it.
I don't think it's that. I think it's this. Because further in there, when it starts talking about the idols and stuff, it says, if anyone says to you in verse 28, this was slaughter to idols, do not eat it because of the one pointed it out to you. So it's lawful meat, for I could go eat it because I know this is going back to, I believe I'm the quote unquote, maybe the stronger in my faith or my understanding or whatever it might be. Where I'm like, I don't care. Whatever it is meat, you know. And so I know that whatever that was offered to or whatever that was prayed over, that's not going to affect me whatsoever. I'm not going to go, like we talked about in the last Bible study, I'm not going to go purposely to that temple while they're slaughtering and doing the prayers and sitting there and wait on, when you guys are finished, I want 2 cold cuts and, you know, it's nothing like that. He's saying, hey, don't go out of your way to go in there and wait on it at the temple. But if it's in the market hanging up,
right.
Hey, but it's saying here, I believe, saying, hey, is it profitable? Can I go eat it? Yeah, I can. But if the one pointed out to me says, by the way, Jonathan, you know that what you're getting ready to eat was offered to an idol and blah, blah. And if it's shaking your brother's faith so much to see this happen to you, he's saying it's better that you not do it.
Right.
Sure, it's profitable. I could eat it if I want to. I can take it home, make a brisket, whatever I want to do, right? He said, but if for the sake of your brother, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of, not all of, but I think that's part of the message in here. He said, hey, I could do a lot of things that are profitable, but if it's going to become a stumbling block for someone else, then think of someone else beside yourself. Instead of going, oh, you weak in faith, you know? It's like, no, he's like, you know what? By the way, it's like almost like, I got this nice roast beef sandwich from Arby's here, and I'm about to tear into it. Yeah, you know that was sacrificed or offered to, you know, whatever. But I think that's what he's talking about here. It's not, yeah, of course, if you want to go out there and gnaw, I got plenty of trees out here. So anybody ever gets to hankering and they want to gnaw on some pine and some water oaks or whatever that's out here, yeah, knock yourself out. I don't see where that would be profitable for you, though, because you would have a tremendous tummy ache afterwards. Yeah, and I don't want to be anywhere near you, or you not. I don't even want you in my house using my bathroom, later. So, okay. So I think this is more of a spiritual, like, hey, just be conscious of when you're doing things, and because we could justify things. Well, I could eat that if I want to. I could do whatever I want to. And so, if it's going to hinder someone, I think Paul's saying, hey, just be nice. You know what I'm saying? So anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a point in there where he's like, obviously you don't want to cause your brother to stumble.
Mm-hmm.
You want to maintain your testimony. Hey, this was sacrificed to idols. Ooh, Paul's the idol meat eater. Wait, man, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like if it's food, it's food. We're eating. But if you're going to come out and say, oh, this is meat sacrificed to idols, then now you're going to hold it over my head. You're going to use it as a point of reference later. It's not that big of a deal. And I think also, it talks about having self-control as one of the fruits of the spirit and not having gluttony and stuff like that. And I think that's why they had fasting and why that's a part of our lives is we can't be controlled by food. Yeah, but I'm so hungry. I don't care about my testimony. Hey, it's just food. You'll be fine. Just eat tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Eat when you get home. Like there's oftentimes we're going to go to a buffet, a potluck, or we're going to go to an event where they planned for 30, 50 people showed up. You don't need to be the first one in line. You can step back and say, I mean, unless you're like diabetic or something and you have to eat, take a step back, let everybody eat that was supposed to eat, and you'll be fine. You can grab something on the way home. You can grab something at the store. You're not going to die. I promise you, no one has died from not eating for a couple hours unless you have some, medical emergency. And I think that's also kind of what Paul's getting at here. He's like, hey, man, just because I can doesn't mean I should. And I have the ability to say, I'll pass. I'd rather just not eat to maintain testimony and to win your soul. Because earlier he was talking about that. It's like, well, yeah, let the flesh, we're going to lose that anyway. So do things that are going to profit the soul of the man, the one that's going to have eternal consequences. So the food, just don't worry about it. If it's sacrificed to idols, if they're over there doing the blood dance, then just leave it alone. It's not worth it. Like, it's not a big deal. There's other food. There's other stuff.
Ms. Farida said, but not if it is an unclean animal, right? And
Of course. Yeah. This says,
that was not optional.
That's not an option at all. Yeah, good question.
about it is food in the first place.
Right. That's not going to be food to anybody in the Torah community or that walk. Because going back this up a little bit, what I'm saying is, verse 25 says, "You eat whatever is sold in the market, in the meat market, asking no questions because of conscience." And again, it's going back to, hey, I know this, whatever was done before this, or even not even done before this. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's something that wouldn't strike the market.
Mhm.
It's no big deal, because in verse 26 he says, "For the earth belongs to Yahuwah and all that fills it." He said, at the end of the day, this is something God created.
Mhm.
So they can be doing dumb over there and doing their dumb stuff, but this is something God created.
Right.
And so I don't have to sit there and be like, worried about that.
Mhm.
But again, in 20 says, "But if any of the unbelievers invite you and wish you to go, you eat whatever is set before you, asking no questions on account of the conscience." This is, again, it's not verse 27. It's not talking about if an unbeliever invites you in their home and they got shrimp on the Barbie, they've got lobster tail, they got, pork rinds and pork whatever. It's not what he's talking about. That would be dumb. But Paul's like, that's not what he's saying.
Mhm.
He's saying the unbeliever, and when we go down, we break down what would be an unbeliever at the time. More than likely, someone who does pagan rituals, someone who believes in other gods. Someone, if you literally came into their home, probably would have multiple statues of other gods in there.
Exactly.
So what he's saying is, and this is, I think this kind of goes back to what Paul was saying before about to all the different people. I forgot what they were. Like, I'll become this for that person, and yeah. And he says, I'll sit down with you. I'll come to your house. What did Messiah do? He ate at the sinner's house all the time. That's why the scribes and the Pharisees were like, I thought he called himself righteous, but look who he sits and has dinner with.
Right.
With tax collectors and all these horrible people of the world.
Not realizing the Pharisees were the bad ones. Jesus was like, hey, you were the worst.
That's that self-righteousness there. It's
right.
like, so what he's saying in here, it's like, if they invite you in the home for the sake, because here's the thing, for the sake of being able to share the gospel with them, for the sake of being able to share your testimony with them, yeah, it's okay. You're going to sit down. You're probably going to see the goddess Diana in there. You're probably going to see something, the Zeus. You're going to see all these different things. He says, but out of consciousness, knowing that no matter what this is, it's not going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
But for the sake of possibly being that witness, yes, for the unbeliever. But then again, he turns around and says, but for your believing brother, maybe a little bit weak in his faith, if all of a sudden he's having a moment, and it's within your ability to go, you know what? I guess I just won't eat this today. Or next time I'll make sure I hide from him and not.
Well, doesn't the
You breaking out, Kyle?
Yeah, you're not coming through at all.
give me I'm right right now. I don't know. Right in front of me. Doesn't that passage refer to the? There.
All right, we'll get you back here in a second.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
And you're gone. Was that movie Signals where he's talking to his dad over the ham radio?
Yeah.
Ham radio, nice.
Ham radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
For this conversation.
Perfect.
Right.
Unkosher.
Remove this unclean speaking device.
Cam radio.
Right.
Oh, that's what the static is?
Yeah.
You're going between the channels?
You're right.
Well, Kyle, until you get some better signal.
Yeah.
Hold on. There we go. Kyle put it in the chat. He says, doesn't it reference the unbeliever and the Greek? I believe you are correct, Mr. Sergei.
Does it reference the daydream believer and the homecoming queen?
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go with that too. I thought there was an interesting point in verse 10. It talked about as some of them did and were destroyed by the destroyer, capital D. So that's like a proper noun name.
Right.
So is this the one that was when the Levites had messed up and then like they released the angel and said, go until I tell you to stop.
Right.
So I didn't know that angel had a name.
Right.
I didn't know there was that's his job.
That's his job. Right.
Hey, go blow stuff up until I tell you not to.
Right. He's the cleansing spirit, I guess, or destroying spirit.
So that's crazy to me because I always just thought it was like, I don't know, plague or something, or God just like, I'm just going to remove your heartbeat and you're just going to be dead. It was like, no, there was an angel who had a name and a job and a title, like Satan is the tempter,
Right.
you know, he's there to tempt man or to provoke man to test their hearts.
Right.
Where the destroyer is like, I'm just here to kill stuff.
Right.
That's my job. God designed me, and I'm cool, but I'm just here to blow stuff up.
Could you
And like, imagine being on God's bad side. He's like, I have all this available to me. I could send you the ministering angel that could feed you like he did Yeshua and bring him from his high place. I could send you the destroyer.
Right.
I could send you the temptation like Job.
pestilence?
Yeah, I got all this stuff in my command. You know, and we keep thinking, oh, God hates me. Oh, God's a mean God. You know, God's sitting on the throne. Like, I'm not getting up off my throne to go handle you humans. Like,
Right.
hey,
He's
you
like,
go
I'm
handle
upper
that.
management. These are my mid-level managers.
And that's why so many of the angels are. So many of the angels are like the messengers. He's like, I'm not going to go and check on Jonathan. Like, not he doesn't care. But he say, I care
Trust
so
but
much that,
verify.
hey, angel, go let me know what I need to know.
Yeah.
Go find out, and then when you let me know, we'll address it. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. That would be the one when y'all go and talk about Yeshua says they'll make everything come down, but it's parking lot that.
Mhm.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Could you imagine if they were all announced like on Mortal Kombat, where it's like Leviathan,
Pain,
pestilence, right,
destroyer,
fight,
He's got a scythe. Oh no.
right.
We have a question in chat. What do
Mhm.
you do when the Torah says not keep things off of idols?
Well, I mean, there's a different context, and I believe in the Old Testament reference because it's one. I think that's in Leviticus, so it's referring to the Levites. And I'm not saying that there's different rules for the Levites than there is the rest of the people, but the Levites were meant to only eat food that was in the temple and in the tabernacle. Where like when these people here, they're already in dispersion. They're living in Macedonia. They're living in Bethlehem. All these other. They're not even living in Jerusalem. And he said, hey, if there was meat, like Joe was saying, you go to the market like today. I mean, where did your cow come from? Whenever you go get your meat from Walmart, who knows, right? Nobody even knows. Do you go and check each time? Do you call the number on the back and verify if it was Lucy or Moo? No, you just eat it because it was clean and it wasn't expired. So I think that's more of the approach that Paul's taking here. Is not, hey, let's go back and try to do the QR code on each piece of meat. It was more of, hey, if you know where it came from and you saw it and it was a problem, yeah, don't mess with it. But if it's just at the market and it's just there with all the rest of the food, how would you even know? So then, but if somebody tells you, he's like, yeah, well, take that as your conviction point. Okay, now that I know. I mean, that's like if you're eating, like just for instance, you go to a restaurant, everybody on this chat, everybody in this room is eating pork since they said they don't eat pork no more. Because if you've been to a restaurant, pig has been in there. But if somebody were to tell you, hey man, no kidding, no, my tongs were all up in the bacon juice, and then I grabbed your burger and put it on there. You're like, it's okay, I'll pass. But if you don't know and someone just serves you a burger, it's just gonna taste like burger. It's gonna be salty like normal, and you don't know that some of that salt was pig. So I think that's more of the approach Paul's trying to take is if you get so dogmatic, and I think there is a point too, don't get me wrong, that we should be going back to old ways where we have our own cows, we have our own slaughter, because then all that goes away. There is no more possible mixing. There is no more, well, let's check and see if this was sacrificed or not. You know it wasn't. I killed it yesterday. I know exactly where this came from. So, but then when you're in captivity, like when they're in Babylon, when they were in Egypt, who's got choices? Where they're not, hey, let's go make sure we get our kosher kale food. They're like, no, you're going to eat this sandwich that I gave you because you're getting ready to go to jail. All right. Joseph, when he's in jail, do you think he wouldn't check, make sure everything was kosher and clean? No, they just gave him food until he got out.
I'm reading Deuteronomy 32 real quick because that's giving us a reference to Deuteronomy 32:38. Says, that's a good question. Let's see. 38 says, who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings. This, I believe, I'm reading through here kind of quickly, but this is for those who actually are joining with those who are actually in this practice. So, multiple times Yahweh has went in and he said, hey, by the way, when you go into the land, don't do as they are doing. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm reading through here. I have to come back. I don't want to say something that, is not correct. But it looks like he's basically talking about verse 21 says, they have made me jealous with what is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their idols, so I will make them jealous with those who are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a wickedly foolish nation. For a fire is kindled in my anger, and it will burn to the lowest parts of Sheol, and it consumes the earth with its produce, and it sets on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap calamities on them. I will exhaust my arrows on them. That's incredible. Exhaust my arrows on them.
I'm tired, man.
They will be wasted by famine and consumed by plague and bitter destruction. And the teeth of beast I will send upon them. With venom of crawling things of the dust outside the sword will be brave, and inside terror, both choice man and virgin, the nursing baby with the man of gray hair. I would have said, I will cut them to pieces. I will cause the memory of them to cease from men. Have I not feared the provocation by the enemy, lest their adversaries misjudge, lest they say, our hand is triumph, and Yahweh has not done all this. For they are a nation where counsel perishes; there is no discernment in them. Would that they were wise and that they had insight into this, that they would understand their future. How could one pursue 1,000 and put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them, and Yahweh had handed them over? Indeed, their rock is not like our rock. Even our enemies themselves judge this, for their vine is from the vine of Sodom and the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of poison, their clusters bitter. Their wine is the venom of serpents and the deadly poison of cobras. It is not laid up in store with me, sealed up in my treasuries. Vengeance is mine, and retribution. In due time their foot will stumble, for the day of their disaster is near, and the impending things are hasting upon them. For Yahweh will render justice to his people, and will have compassion on his slaves, when he sees their strength is gone, and there is none remaining, bond or free. And he will say, where are their gods, the rock which they sought refuge, who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings? So,
what is this in reference to?
Pertaining
to
Meat sacrifice.
meat sacrifice to idols.
Oh, gotcha.
Do or do not.
There is no try.
If I may,
You may.
I'll make a different point here. Verse 13. This one talking about temptation. There's some of it where no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. So he's like, when you are tempted, you are going to be tempted, and you're going to fall into it because it's normal. You're not Superman. You're not Jesus. And even then he was tempted. He just he chose not to fall into the temptation, but he was fully tempted like the rest of us. And not that you be tempted beyond your ability, but with temptation, he will. I love it. This is the part I think that's important. But with the temptation, he will also provide a way of escape. So he's saying there's never a time when you're in a corner that you can't get out. And I love that because so often, what was I supposed to do? Well, I had no choice. I had to.
Right.
Well, my kids are starving, so I had to go steal. Well, no. I was out in the woods and I had to eat the pig because that's all we could find. Well, we had to go. You don't have to do anything. He says, I will always, right? Isn't that sounds the promised language to me, provide a way of escape so that you can endure. So I'm going to take care of you or give you at least some way out of it. And sometimes the way out of it is what? The other side of glory, which is the ultimate win. So he's like, sometimes your other side is dead, but be thankful because now you're on your way to come see me. That you may be able to endure. So the other part is, he's like, just because you're tempted doesn't mean you can snap your fingers and be like, oh, I'm just going to pray for a hedge of protection around me. I'm just going to say, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Oh, I'm just going to throw all the stuff out there and it just poof, disappears. Like, no, you got to endure. Yeah. You're going to sit there. It's going to be in your face. You might have a coworker trying to get you fired. You might have whatever situation. You might somebody brings donuts to work every single day and you said, I'm not eating any more donuts. And they just set them there right in the free, all shiny, warm, and glazed, and you're like, I got it. But he's like, but you got to endure, and that's a stupid example. But, so much stuff in our life where he's like, I'm not going to just leave you high and dry. So don't know that I'm always with you. But also, you got to go through it. My son went through it. I'm going through it, dealing with you guys. You know how tempting it is to wipe you off the face of the earth? You know how many times I thought about it? Remember me and Moses talked about getting rid of all y'all? So he's like, I have temptation too. Now, and I don't think the Father's tempted in the same way we are, but he had ideas that were changed. And so he's like, hey, I get it. I understand. And my son's up here giving me information. He's like, hey, he was human and he knows how hard it was. He's like, hey, Dad, don't flick him in the forehead because you will kill them. Let's give him some grace and let him try to fix it again. But you got to go through the process and endure. And then the ultimate goal of endure is be better on the other end of it.
Right.
And so I just love that whole chunk there, because Paul's like, I'm gonna put you on some good information. And I think the people there, especially they're talking about idols, and he's like, hey, I'm surrendering all my rights to money and stuff like that. He's like, I could do all this stuff and I could beat you guys up, but let's talk like adults.
Right.
It's hard out here. Think how you got to deal with it though.
Well,
Yeah.
if you think about temptation as what it's for, it's a honing process. So if we're tempted, if we're under stress, if we're struggling, all of those are how the Father purifies us, because at every step of all of those, you have a choice. You either turn to Him, or you can turn into your desires and what you want to do. So if you got my bifocals on, this is fun. Hold on, give me a second. What verse was that?
13.
Yeah. But if he's going to do this, and he's going to put these situations in front of you, he's not just going to throw you in the deep end to start with. He's going to, because it wouldn't be accurate for him, and it wouldn't be fair, because he knows where we are. He knows everything about us. So for us to just go, full till or ham, go ham, as the saying is, it would not be who he is, because his ultimate goal is to be with us forever. So he just put the worst temptation possible in front of us. We're going to fail. And that doesn't teach us anything. It doesn't help us grow. It doesn't do anything. Everything that is in our path is always there for a reason. And it's always to give us a decision to turn to Him.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, on 13, I was going to say, my note says, we cannot plead our temptation as an excuse for sinning. Sin is never a necessity for a believer.
Mm. That's a good point.
And going back to what we were saying earlier, because it was going to be a partaker of the bread and the wine and all that stuff. When you go past that just a little bit, it starts to says, "What do I say, that an idol is of any value, or that which is slaughtered to idols is of any value? No, but what the nations slaughtered, they slaughtered the demons and not to Elohim. And I do not wish you to become sharers of demons. You are not able to drink the cup of the master and the cup of demons. You are not able to partake of the table of the master in the table of demons. Do we provoke the master to jealousy, or are we stronger than he?" So I think, again, this is going back to actually partaking in the ritual of, like, it's one thing of your conscience saying, "Hey, I know that's all dumb, and whatever's at the market, we're going to buy, we're going to feed our family because that's what we have." But it's another thing, again, for you to go and actually partake and be a part of this whole sacrifice to idols, because multiple times our Heavenly Father has said, "I am a jealous El. I am jealous of you." And so, and then he goes on to say about all the things, hey, when you go into the land again, don't do the dumb that everybody else is doing. Tear down the Asherah poles, tear down all the idols, burn them, do whatever it is, get rid of them, because I don't want you participating in what they're doing. And I definitely don't want you to have another God on your lips, because what that is to me is not like when we're going through a teaching thing and we're reading about Apollos or we're reading about Diana, that's not necessarily we are speaking of a foreign God or a God, and a small, Elohim. But the difference is this, from a teaching standpoint, is different than me participating in. I believe that when the Father says not to have even their names on your lips, he's saying don't participate in what they're doing, because there's a lot of rituals where there's a lot of chanting going on. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, probably 99.9% of the rituals are some type of chanting going on to some other Elohim, lowercase c, of course. He's saying don't be a part of that. When it comes to understanding of the eating of the meats, hey, don't go over there and be a part of it. Don't sit there, as they're doing their whatever their ritual is. Don't be a willing participant of it. He says stay far away from that as possible. Mm-hmm. Unless you get caught up in it, and then that's on you now.
Right. So then, Joe, you brought up exactly where I was going to go, but from a different perspective. So, verse 19, what do I imply then? I love, Paul is one of his favorite things to do, ask rhetorical questions and make you feel dumb. So that way you have to go back and reread it and contemplate the ideas and concepts he's trying to get you to understand. He said, what am I trying to imply here? You know, like, come on, let's figure this out. That food offered to idols is anything, or that an idol is anything? He's like, no, right? So he solves the problem. He's like, idols are nothing. Food and sacrifice to idols, that's not a big deal. If you're doing the junk, that's the big deal. It's the thought, the action, the work that goes into it. That's the problem. Yeah, if you're chanting, if you're down there doing the waving blood in the air like you just don't care and doing all this weird stuff, he's like, no, don't do none of that stuff. That's weird. It's crazy, and I didn't ask for none of that. And like, so I think he starts off with the Israelites leaving Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, see these guys? Remember how they lived? That was regular. And then, but also you saw the problems that they had. That's where they messed up. So now that we have some understanding of what's good and what's wrong, now think about what you're doing. Does that sound like the stuff that they would have had the destroyer come after them for? Does that sound like the stuff that they would have gotten in trouble, had to walk 40 years for? Yeah, what you're doing is that stuff. Now, if you want to be on the good side of that, then you have to follow their example. We have those examples say this is what you do and you don't do. He said, so eating the meat, just eat it. If God gives you manna, don't ask where it came from. Just say thank you. It's from God. Here, eat it. Well, what's this? Say thank you. The end. Where, you know, he's like, if you were given some meat, thank you. I appreciate it. Sustenance. Hey, this meat was totally wiped all over the floor. We covered it in whatever, and we had some lady do some weird ritual in the background, and now you can have it. That's okay. I don't want to join myself in with that practice. So a lot of it is practice-based. But I like that it says, no, I implied that what pagan sacrifice they offer to demons and not to God. So he's like, all right, already you know there's a left or a right. You do that, you're going left, which is in contrary to the Father. And then if you're contrary to the Father, you know not the Father. So he's like, don't be dumb. I do not want you to be participants with demons. So that's kind of the direction I was going to go with it, is more, you know, I think Paul's not directly going into like the conversation about let's get into demonology. But he knows that when Yeshua spoke with him, he said, hey, this is how we do things. This is good, orderly conduct. Yeshua, when he had the situation with people that were demon-possessed and stuff, there was no conversations. There was no participation. Jesus didn't ask him, what's your name? Where did you come from? How are you tempting this guy? What is your processes? What's your methods? Let's figure everything out. See if we can work this process out. Hey, let's see if we can bind you. Let's see if we can have this contractual all this weird stuff. He's like, no, be quiet and go away, because we're done here. We're not having a conversation. And so I'm thinking Paul's kind of going back to some of those sentiments of like, we're not participating in this. Like if there's a situation, we bring God / Holy Spirit, angel, Jesus, whatever, that goes away and you continue walking in righteousness. And so he's like, this isn't a game to be played around with. He's like, at the same time, if it's food, it's food. You know, if it's in the market, eat it. But if you start getting into the process and the understanding and trying to figure everything out and learning what they're doing and all that stuff, he's like, that's where you're going to mess up. And I think in our world today with some of the deliverance stuff, I think you start digging in. You're 25 feet deep in unrighteous, unholy stuff. Yeah, you're maybe trying to fight it, but I'd be like, why go learn how to be a good Mormon if you're trying to be a good Christian? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I understand that you're trying to say there's a few people that God brings into the world that says, go be the guy who defeats that. Go be the guy who speaks against that. But on average, that's not the job of Christian. The job of a believer is follow God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You know, participate in righteousness and good works. So how is any of that leading you to that? Think on things that are good, holy, and pure. Well, what are demons? Bad, ugly, and dumb. Then don't think on that stuff. Think on this stuff. So I think Paul's also giving them that precursor warning of that realm, that idea, that side of town. That's not where you go. We're the city on a hill. We bring those people to us. We don't go to where they're at and learn their stuff. So I just thought it was really interesting the way Paul brought all that into like a big picture after speaking about the people coming out of Egypt, the land of many gods.
Very good.
It was a lot to digest.
So I said it fast. So, you know, in case you had any
And Miss
questions.
Fariba did say she loved your point you made earlier also, Vicky.
Oh.
Got your dad and Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. Yep.
Doom.
Doom. All right, what else we got?
So this is a hard one in our world today. I just want to see what you guys think about it. Give no offense to Jews or to Greeks or to the Church of God. So we've always kind of been talking just on average, there's Jews or Greeks or Jews or Gentiles. Well, now we have three categories. We have Jews, Gentiles, and the Church of God. So is it not trying to be funny, but is it literally saying Jews and Greeks are separate from what we call Church of God? Because Paul seems to be making this distinction, and we know that that's brought up many times. Those people are called the way. So is there a third category that neither of those two groups are a part of, based on his separation of words?
Yeah.
What verse is that?
That would be
32.
32,
32,
so
yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, that is.
Because he only has one church. He said that's his church, and everybody else is something else.
And it's funny because when you look at how, again, Paul's a little bit of a complex individual here. Because when you go into 29, it says, now I say, conscience, not your own, but that of the other. For why is my freedom judged by another's conscience? But if I partake with thanks, why am I evil spoken of for what I give thanks? Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do. So whether you're going to eat of it or not eat of it, he says, do all to the esteem of Elohim. Amen. So I love how he redirects this whole thing of, hey, I have the liberty, not the liberty, hopefully not be a stumbling block for someone. But at the same time, it's like that moral dilemma inside your brain was, why am I being judged for eating when I'm perfectly fine for it? So I think that the end of his conclusion is, hey, whatever it is you decide to do, whether to eat or don't eat, just make sure that you're doing it all to the esteem of Elohim, that you're doing it from the right heart. Because I think the wrong heart would be like, I don't really care if it's a stumbling block for you or not. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Right.
Christ died on the cross, so I have grace flowing right now. I think that's kind of like what Paul's conclusion is, like, hey, whether or not, because everyone's going to be different. So whether or not, hey, you eat or don't eat, whatever it is you do, just make sure it's from the right place and that you're giving all the glory back to the Father. It says, and therefore, this 32 says, cause no stumbling either to, so hey, just be careful about the stumbling. Now, I agree with you, Jonathan, when he talks about the Yehudim or to the Greeks or to the assembly of Elohim. There definitely could be a distinction there between the non-Messiah believing Yehudim and to the Greeks. Was if you're still considered a Greek, then you're probably not a believing, because there's no Jew or Gentile once you're a believer. He says, or to the assembly of Elohim, as I also please all men in all matters, not seeking my own advantage, but that of the many, that they might be saved. So again, Paul brings it back. Paul's a little bit complex in his thinking. He's always so hey, whatever you do, good or bad, or I wouldn't say good or bad, whatever you do,
Good
and your conscience,
good or bad,
do it unto Elohim. Make sure you do your best, again, not to be a stumbling block to these brothers over here, because we still want to see them come to Messiah.
Right.
We want to see the Greeks, basically the Gentiles, come to Messiah, right? And then also for those who are already believers who are part of the assembly, be careful of what you do and your conscience around them as well. He says, as I also please all men in all matters, that's 33. And that's why I think Paul's back in the beginning, I became all things to all men that they may be saved. Not seeking my own advantage, but that of the many, that they might be saved. So again, I think Paul kind of ends it on a good note of, hey, everything you do it in the right heart. Remember, this is the goal. This is the mission. It's not always about filling our belly with whatever we want to eat. It's not doing whatever I feel is permissible for me. But at the same time, what if my actions, if I do the right actions, can actually help lead someone to salvation instead of pushing them away? So, yeah.
good job.
Yeah, like I said, the reason why I like it, because I think we've all kind of come to the point that we know there's a left side and a right side, and we're kind of in the middle. We're like bridging the gap. And I think this verse, for me at least, is the first time I've seen that distinction of, oh, here's God's assembly, his church, and then on either side of you got Jews and you got Gentiles. You've got the Jews on this one side, you've got the church or whoever's not believing in Yeshua the Messiah, because if you don't have him, you don't have the Father. So the Greeks who are believing in weird God stuff, they for sure don't. And the Jews who don't believe in Messiah at all and act some bad stuff, they don't either. So that puts us and whoever this third category group in the same category, and the other two on the outside looking in. But the reason why I think it starts off with says give no offense to them is because we're supposed to be making the Jews jealous. We're supposed to be going into the nations and preaching the gospel of the kingdom. So the disciples, their job was go first to Jerusalem, where the Jews were at, then Judea, where some Jews and some other people were at, and then to the ends of the earth. Go get all of them. And our mission is not no different. Is we're supposed to be causing them to be jealous. Like, hey, we, the church of God, the people who are following the commands and keeping the testimony of Yeshua, as it says in Revelation, that's a different group than what the groups we're seeing in the world today. There's groups who don't have the testimony of Yeshua, so that's not them. There's groups who don't keep the commands, so that's not them. So there's a special group, this probably third category, that's like, oh, we're doing all that. And I'm not trying to put any of us or any of you guys online like on a pedestal, but that does put us in a position of, well, you're kind of in that right middle line where and I think it's interesting that you're causing someone to be jealous or going and being the city on a hill that you're not putting a basket on. You're saying, hey, you guys are not us, but yet we think that we're something. So then why is it that you're having a special distinction? And I think that's kind of what that's saying. Hey, at the same time, at the end of the day, whether we're talking about food or sacrifice or sitting down to eat, you can't be causing them offense. But even when Yeshua was walking the earth, I mean, he could have went and did a full uppercut on every Pharisee he ever saw. But instead, he just asked them questions. Well, what does the scripture say? How do you perceive what you just did? Do you think killing the Messiah was the right choice? Oh, do you think persecution was the right answer? Oh, you said you have the love of God, but then yet this widow here is giving 2 mites. Where are you at in this? Why is she not being taken care of? Oh, you're worried about me crunching up some grains in my hands, but you're over here talking about all this dumb junk. So you know that when I put my mouth, it's not going to define. Why are you talking to me right now? So what he's doing is keeping the ball in their court. And I think that's where he walked in that he took the most fine line possible, where he's like, I'm never going to offend you guys, but I'm going to be all up in your face. And that's that challenge where we're supposed to be able to go and challenge our brother and provoke them to righteousness or to good works. I think the verse in Hebrews you bring up in the sermon. So that's our job. But he never went and just was like, you're dumb, your family's dumb, to the 10th generation, get out of my face.
Yeah, that goes straight to my point, which is awesome. Way to segue. So whenever Jonathan, I think you saw him too, that preacher who does the shock preaching where he comes out and he's super caustic and kind of obtuse intentionally because he wants the shock value. I think that's what this is preaching towards, is because you turn more people off and you turn more people away from God than you do turn them towards them when you do that type of stuff. So he's basically saying, don't go out there and be, confrontational and abrasive in the name of God, because you're not glorifying God by doing that, because God doesn't walk in that spirit.
Right.
So,
yeah, milk and honey, not vinegar and spice.
Right. What are we talking? Potato chips?
Yep.
Sounds delicious.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Milk and honey potato chips.
Ooh.
I'm down on that.
Catch your dad posted in Psalm 89, verse 34. It says, I shall not profane my covenant, neither would I change what has gone out from my lips.
Right.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you. All right, ready?
Yes, we got a long one again. 1 Kings chapter 2, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't want to lie to anybody. Out loud, at least. I'll do it silently. All right, so the book of 1 Kings, the chapter of 2.
Wanted to bring something up.
Good.
So I talked to Jesse about, remember how we went through the different, like Yeshua not being from the lineage of Solomon. David was or Joseph is from the lineage of Solomon, and Jesse can rattle them off,
Right.
like off the top of her.
Yes, I think I remember Joseph had like one side.
And because they both go back to David no matter what.
Right.
And then she also gave me the history on all of the brothers that were dead and who had been killed and who their wives were. And I was like, please, just one Bible study, sweetheart. Just one, please.
Yeah, that would be a benefit. I'm going to do my best with these names. I'm not going to dwell on them too much because these things are tough. All right, chapter 2. When David's time to die drew near, he commanded Solomon his son, saying, I am about to go the way of all the earth. Be strong and show yourself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his rules, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that you may prosper in all that you do wherever you turn, that the Lord may establish this word that he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons pay close attention to their way, to walk before me in faithfulness with all their heart and with all their soul, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. Moreover, you also know Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me, how he dealt with the two commanders of the armies of Israel, Abner the son of Ner and Amasa the son of Jether, whom he killed, avenging in time of peace for blood that had been shed in war, and putting the blood of war on the belt around his waist and on the sandals of his feet. Act therefore according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray head go down to Sheol in peace, but deal loyally with the sons of Barzillai the Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table, for with such loyalty they met me when I fled from Absalom your brother. And there is also with you Shimei the son of Gera the Benjamite, and Bahurim, who cursed me with a grievous curse on the day when I went to Mahanaim. But when he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, saying, I will not put you to death with the sword. Now therefore do not hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man. You will know what you ought to do with him, and you shall bring his gray head down with blood to Sheol. Then David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And the time that David reigned over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of David his father, and his kingdom was firmly established. Then Adonijah, the son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, and she said, do you come peacefully? He said, peacefully. Then he said, I have something to say to you. She said, speak. He said, you know that the kingdom was mine, and that all Israel fully expected me to reign. However, the king was turned about and became my brother's, for it was his from the Lord. And now I have one request to make of you. Do not refuse me. She said to him, speak. And he said, please ask King Solomon, he will not refuse you, to give me Abishag the Shunammite as my wife. Bathsheba said, very well, I will speak for you to the king. So Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak to him on behalf of Adonijah, and the king rose to meet her, and bowed down to her. Then he sat on his throne, and he had a seat brought for the king's mother, and she sat at his right. Then she said, I have one small request to make of you. Do not refuse me. And the king said to her, make your request, my mother, for I will not refuse you. She said, let Abishag the Shunammite be given to Adonijah, your brother, as his wife. King Solomon answered his mother, and why do you ask Abishag for the Shunammite for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom also, for he is my older brother, and on his side are Abiathar the priest and Joab the son of Zeruiah. Then King Solomon swore to the Lord, saying, God, do so to me, the more also, if this word does not cost Adonijah his life. Now, therefore, as the Lord lives, he has established me and placed me on the throne of David, my father, and who has made me a house as he promised. Adonijah shall be put to death today. So King Solomon sent Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and he struck him down, and he died. And to Abiathar the priest, the king said, go to Anathoth to your estate, for you deserve death. But I will not at this time put you to death, because you carried the ark of the Lord God before David my father, and because you shared in all my father's affliction. So Solomon expelled Abiathar from being priest to the Lord, thus fulfilling the word of the Lord that had been spoken concerning the house of Eli in Shiloh. When the news came to Joab, for Joab had supported Adonijah, although he had not supported Absalom, Joab fled to the tent of the Lord and caught hold of the horns of the altar. And when it was told King Solomon, Joab had fled to the tent of the Lord and behold, he is beside the altar. Solomon sent Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, saying, go strike him down. Then Benaiah he came to the tent of the Lord and said to him, the king commands, come out. But he said, no, I will die here. Then Benaiah brought the king word again, saying, Thus said Joab, and thus he answered me. The king replied to him, Do as he has said, strike him down and bury him, and thus take away from me and from my father's house the guilt for the blood that Joab shed without cause. The Lord will bring back his bloody deeds on his own head, because without the knowledge of my father David, he attacked and killed with the sword 2 men more righteous and better than himself, Abner, the son of Ner, commander of the army of Israel, and Amasa, the son of Jether, commander of the armies of Judah. So shall their blood come back on the head of Joab and on the head of his descendants forever. But for David and his descendants, and for the house and for his throne, there shall be peace from the Lord forevermore. Then Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, went up and struck him down and put him to death, and he was buried in his own house in the wilderness. The king put Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, over the armies in place of Joab, and the king put Zadok the priest in place of Abiathar. Then the king sent and summoned Shimei, and said to him, Build yourself a house in Jerusalem and dwell there, and do not go out from there to any place whatever. For on the day you go out and cross the brook Kidron, know for certain that you shall die. Your blood shall be on your own head. And Shimei said to the king, What you say is good, as my lord the king has said, so will your servant do. So Shimei lived in Jerusalem many days. But it happened at the end of 3 years that 2 of Shimei's servants ran away to Achish, the son of Maacah, king of Gath. And when it was told Shimei, Behold, your servants are in Gath, Shimei rose and saddled his donkey and went to Gath to Achish to seek his servants. Shimei went and brought his servants from Gath. And when Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and returned, the king sent and summoned Shimei and said to him, Did I not make you swear by the Lord and solemnly warn you, saying, Know for certain that on the day that you go out and go to any place, whatever, you shall die. And you said to me, What you say is good, I will obey. Why then have you not kept your oath to the Lord and the commandment which I commanded you? The king also said to Shimei, You know in your own heart all the harm that you did to David my father. So the Lord will bring back your harm on your own head. But King Solomon shall be blessed, and the throne of David shall be established before the Lord forever. Then the king commanded Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and he went out and struck him down, and he died. So the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. Blah, blah. No more talking for the rest of the day.
Yeah. It's a lot going on.
I thought it was interesting because last week you had Nathan the prophet, and then Zadok the priest, and who was it? Another one came together, prophet, priest, and king for Solomon, and then that's like a reference to Yeshua in a way, because there's a prophet, king, and priest, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then now this is the judgment, is it not? In a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Solomon's definitely taking care of business, and
Has to though.
Right.
Yeah.
well, he's going to have to, because if not, then you're going to have more silliness going on. So I think he's coming in, and I don't know what it is about Solomon or about his brother or about, the last chapter we read where he's literally holding onto the horns of the altar, and he's like, apparently you were the big man out on the street, with the whole marching band, everybody, I'm the new king, and dad's about to die, and as soon as you heard that Solomon was coming into power, you're like, oh please, brother.
I heard something. I saw in verse 2 that David was 70, so that was 30 when he was king. And this person was saying Solomon was probably 17, 18 when he took over.
He was young.
Yeah. So that had to be hard too. On top of it, you had to go and get that hash down.
Well, I think he started, or at least attempted to start, kind of like that. Hey, I'm going to take care of you guys. I'm not going to just come here and kill everybody. I'm not going to go on a mass spree of just I'm in charge and everybody's going to know it. He's like, hey, you go here, live your life. You're good to go. Hey, you got to die because you're being dumb. And that was your choice. And then, it's kind of just going through like the origin story. That's
Right.
a lot of what we're getting is how was it established? Why was it established? And he's like, hey, so I know that we were established by the people, but we know that you were established by the Lord. So, what are we going to do here? What am I going to fight God? And so I think there was an early indicator of just, like I know Nick was talking last week, like when there was a power struggle of who was supposed to be in charge, and who told who, and what did David say? But they're like, no, Solomon was chosen by the Lord, so that
Right.
overcovers everything else. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what bloodline, doesn't matter
Right.
who
And
did what.
well, soon I talked to Jesse about that also, and so technically, where's his name? I always get it wrong. Technically, Adonijah was the technical king because he was older and he was also from the bloodline of the true wife of David.
Which one?
He was the oldest one that was left from his real wives, because remember the other ones were killed in battle and then killed out of deception.
Mm-hmm.
So Adonijah was the technically true king. That's why he started doing all of this stuff. But it was already known. That's why he even says in this one that the people expected this from me.
Mm-hmm.
Was because he was the eldest brother of the legitimate wife.
Right.
And you have Bathsheba or Beersheba, one of the Shebas. She was his taken wife after all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So technically Solomon didn't have a claim to the throne. Yahweh gave him the throne through that lineage.
But that happens all the time.
Right.
Esau,
And I'm not exactly. I'm not saying
Reuben
that it's
would've been
wrong.
mad.
Obviously, that's the way God wanted it to go, and there was something going on with these other brothers as to why it needed to be through this bloodline.
Right. And of course,
So-
when you get that power struggle, everybody's trying to,
Right.
jockeying for position. Well, can I be number 2? Well, can I get the wife? At least she was pretty. I don't know. What do I get out of the story? Like, you want dad's grieving widow? Like,
Right.
or not widow. They never got married.
Right.
Technically, I mean, I guess if she slept with him, I mean, kind of, but I don't know. Weird, he's like, why? Like that, no. And, I think that Solomon was almost like, what?
Well,
Like, what are you asking for? You want the wife?
I think
you want
he
the lady
right.
of my dad?
Well, and I think he understood why is because with her comes the kingdom that she basically was the princess of or whatever.
Right.
So
I think he was
he's
trying
like-
to use
He
lineage
again,
for-
exactly.
I heard something that said that she one of his concubines or
Right.
something like that. So if he would have married, that would have automatically made
Right.
him next in line. So they were stopping,
Mm.
Yeah.
make it more legitimate.
Yeah. So Jesse said something about some of the brothers or something being Hittivites or something like that. So that's why it had to stay in the tribe of Judah.
Mm.
So that's why it goes down to Solomon as opposed to being Adonijah.
Mm.
So
Yeah, once you find out, it was like, I mean, because they said it was like, well, you were chosen by the Lord. I mean,
Right.
that's the
Right.
end of the conversation. Like everything else, shut it down.
right.
You can sell them into slavery like Joseph. He's like, I don't care. God picked me. So what do you want me to say?
Right.
Well, the good thing is that you see, I mean, I know Solomon has his issues down the road, but what he is doing with the wisdom that's been given to him is that he's reestablishing order very
Yep.
quickly.
Mhm.
Because without it, then everything will still be up in chaos.
Right.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the last part of David's life, there's a lot of chaos going on with different sons trying to usurp the throne. Things happening with stepsisters that shouldn't be happening. Things are falling apart. Taking the census that you shouldn't have been taking. People are dying from that. So I think the best thing that Solomon could do by coming in, regardless of his age, if he was 17 years old, maybe a little bit older, whatever, in there, this was the wisdom granted to him by Yahuwah, was to say, okay, we have to reestablish order now. This can't be an ongoing thing. This can't be, the one guy, he gives him 3 years to say, or didn't give him 3 years to say, hey, I'll tell you what, you don't leave and I will not kill you. And then the guy makes an agreement, says, hey, you know what? That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
And what probably happened, like most things, 3 years goes by. It's like, it's probably not a big deal. He probably likes me now. And
Water under the
we're
bridge.
just water under the bridge. We're probably good. And I heard of 2 of my slaves that went south this way, and I need to get them back. And then all of a sudden, Solomon was like, hey, man, remember you said this? And matter of fact, you said it was a good word. So
Which that's a good memory too.
yeah,
He's like, I'm gonna repeat back to you what you said to me. Do we agree or do we disagree? You said that, right? Yeah. Well, then this blood is on your head.
Yeah.
This was you made this commitment. I said I'm committed to kill you. You're
Right.
committed to not dying. So now you want to die.
So what I do like from Solomon off the go is the fact that he's didn't really get to spend a lot of time with Dad before Dad died, but you can see the characteristics of David in him because he's like, hey, I'm going to show you some mercy that I really don't have to.
Mm.
David showed mercy to other people when he didn't have to. He showed mercy to Saul's descendants, and he kind of really didn't have to, but he did anyway. And so you see, he said, hey, you did my dad wrong, and by all rights, your blood needs to be spilt because of this. But I tell you what, I'm going to give you that thin line of grace. You know, as long as you stay here and don't leave, you're good. But just know the day that you leave this border, you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I like you're seeing some characteristics of his father through Solomon at a very early age.
Well, isn't it interesting though? You have that, he goes and tells him that on his deathbed, but don't you have a more like emotional or kind of thing on your deathbed, like, oh, I'm going to miss you, I'm so sorry, or like, it's interesting that that's missing from all that.
Yeah,
Like, he was a warrior and all that, but still, like,
I think all those conversations were still had. Like when we read through like the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, you see like there's a lot of conversation they're having. They're like, hey kids, all right, let's listen. I'm about to die. Here's the deal. I used to be drunk. That got me in trouble. I did this, and I tried to burn the lady with fire. That was a bad idea all around because that was technically on me. So here's the deal. This is what I want you to remember. This is what I don't want you to remember. This is what you should do. This is what you should not do. I feel like stretching. Now I'm dead. You know, and so like there was a lot of like wisdom that they were sharing, and if those stories are any bit of accurate, that's a good way to go. You know, you don't want to be sitting there like, hey, just hold my hand and tell me sweet nothings. Like, no. This is the last 10 minutes I got with you. No, you need some information. I messed up. If you walk the same path, you're gonna mess up. Do you want to be where I'm at, where you had to get scolded and lose your kids? No. So don't do that stuff. So I think that's a lot of what these rulers back then were. I'm about to leave. What you have on your shoulders is impossible job. So let me give you the last bit of help that you can get. So that way, at least you have something in your brain to say, all right, tomorrow when lady shows up, do not do it. Shut it down.
Right. What's funny was I was having that scene from The Mask with Jim Carrey when he's pretending to die. He goes, tell Tiny Tim I won't be coming home for Christmas this year. That what you're going for with David dying? Like, gotta go through that. No, I'm kidding. Could you imagine David pulling something like that where he's like tell Tiny Tim I won't be home for Christmas this year.
Like,
who's Tiny Tim?
don't let my son have Abishag.
Yeah.
Whatever you do.
But anyway, I just thought that was funny. It was like, we'll get the emotional side of it.
The other point that was interesting, if you guys caught on with Anchor to Truth today, I think I'm going to try to do some kind of random connection back to Anchor to Truth every week.
Sure, there you go. Random, just
but
out there.
In verse 3, that's really long. It says, and keep the charge of the Lord your God. So this is kind of that same conversation that was like in the 12 Patriarchs, where it's like, before I die, do what God says. So, and keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his rules, his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses. So this morning we were talking about the commandments and are you keeping them? Is it just 10? Is it 2? Is it 6:13? Whatever, fill in the blanks. But it's so much more than that. If you want to say that the law was nailed to the cross, well, great. I'm not saying that's actually great. That's sarcastic. But okay, cool. Put that to the side. And then you still have the testimonies. You still have the statutes. You still have the ordinances. You still have the judgments. All that stuff still exists. So, to say that, oh, that's all done away with. Well, good luck with trying to do away with judgment whenever the end of the world comes, right? That's going to happen. You can't say it's done away with. So that whole chunk of information is everything. Right, just because it's not literally says this law due today. Okay, if you want to, and I'll use ignorant as a nice word. If you want to be ignorant and push that to the side, you still got all the rest of it. What are you going to do with that stuff? What about all these statutes? He's like, this is how you walk with your brothers in community. It's not a commandment. This is how you do it. And you're like, was that done away with too? Absolutely not. So it's just a dumb argument, in my opinion. Or silly. Let's go with that. But I love that was what David was. Okay, I'm about to die. Hey, Solomon, listen, do what God said. Trust me. You want to know how I'm here? You know why we got all this? Because I did what God said. It's not because I'm super smart or I'm Bill Gates, reincarnated or pre-incarnated. It's because I did what God said. and I need you to follow that. And if you do that, it'll go well with you.
Mhm.
You can call him like,
What's
I
that?
see what you're laughing at now.
Yep.
call him like anchor barnacles. Here's another barnacle.
Do you have anything you want to say? You raise your hand.
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Oh.
Because you said I want something to like kind of tie into anchor, and barnacles hang on to anchors.
Particles it is.
Barnacles.
Yeah, Miss Cleveland, she said, whenever I read this section, it takes me a couple hours to get it all straight. Then it does not stick with me. I agree with you on that one. That when we're reading through these stories and all these different names, because they're like one-off names for us for the most part. You know what I mean? I know they're in here, but it's not like we're talking about these other people later on a whole lot. So you're like, wait, the brother, which brother was this? Oh, this is who? Oh, that's the high priest? I mean, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Hold on, wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Well, and to that point, you know, obviously I know I had to read it. You know, this is a lot to cover in 30 minutes, but it's a good overview, high level look into it. And the goal of any of these studies, you know, like the people in the Bible didn't go to church one day a week and say, okay, throw the scriptures out, never look at it again. You know, a lot of times it was an introduction, an idea, and a concept, and then we're supposed to meditate on these things day and night. You know, we're supposed to have praise on our lips constantly, pray without ceasing, and, you know, have the scriptures, you know, in our lives. So, yeah, this stuff's not meant to be exhaustive. I'm not even, we have to do like a 5-hour study just to even get this one chapter. Maybe 5 hours might not even be enough for that if you want to really, really be technical. So it's just really high level to introduce the ideas, the characters, the people, and so we can, you know, Telegram, Facebook, YouTube, you know, wherever we can all get together and, you know, hash these things out and enjoy some lingering conversations.
It took Jesse 3 years and a brain injury to be highly versed in this.
Noted.
Yeah.
But that's honestly, I know I brag on my wife a lot, but that's honestly some of the impressive stuff is she remembers all these names and their lineages and who and the extra biblical text and where it's referenced and where down the road why this mattered and stuff like that. I'm like, yep.
So was the deal with Abishag? I mean, I know she was originally brought in to keep David warm. You know,
Right.
I'm not trying to imply what it's not saying, but it kind of sounds like what it's saying is what it's saying. Like she was there to be
right.
to love on him a little bit, you know, give him a good time on his way out.
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't?
Yeah, no, they didn't have coitus.
Because I mean, in some she was sleeping in the bed with him, or, you know, keeping him close to body contact.
Right.
So,
I think it was mostly just someone to be with him while
caretaker.
he was on the way out.
But it just makes me wonder, why was it such a big deal that, because it wasn't like, you know, he tried to uncover his father's nakedness, as it's called.
It's not that.
His father's skirt. So it's not that. So I wonder if it, you know, it's not like he broke that rule of commands. So it just kind of makes me wonder if maybe Solomon was more angry that he's like, oh, let me go to mom and then try to get mom to, you know, go behind my back. And then, hey, Solomon, son, do you mind if you can give so-and-so such and such? He's like, well, why don't you just come talk to me like a man face to face? Don't go talk to mom and try to do all the weird stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder what was the story behind it, of like why dad.
Why are they trying to marry dad's electric blanket?
Well, it's going back to what you said earlier, Nick. It's about when you go to verse 22, it says, and the sovereign Solomon answered and said to his mother, now why do you ask Abishag the Shumanite for Adiyahu? Ask for him the rain also.
Right.
See what I'm saying? He's like, whoa. He's like, it's almost like this guy, his older brother, goes to his mother, going through the back door, like, hey, that's what I'm saying. Whatever it was about Solomon, this dude's either a big fraidy cat or I don't know what's going on with him. But he's gonna go to instead of going to him and say, hey, bro, you know, we brothers, right? Hey, man, you mind if you know, looking for a wife, and look, we're, you know, anyway. And so this guy goes to his mother to ask for these things. And then Solomon says, basically says, why don't you just ask for the rain also? Why don't you, he says, for he is my older brother. He's like, hey, mom, whoa. Nothing against you. I'm not going to disrespect you, mom, but do you understand? You see what's happening here? He's my older brother who's going to take the wife of our father's concubine. He is technically he is the next guy in line in lineage, He says, "For he is my older brother, for him and for Abiathar the priest, and for Joab son of Zeruiah." And so then it says in verse 23, and the sovereign Solomon swore by Yahuwah, saying, Elohim does so to me, and more also, if Adonihu has not spoken this word against his own life.
Well, we got from First Chronicles 22 when David, was telling Solomon that he was told that he would build the house of the Lord because of all the bloodshed. So I guess maybe she already knew all that. She was trying to put it in motion. Bathsheba
She's trying to do what? Say
put
again?
everything in motion because David had already told Solomon he was going to be the one.
Mm-hmm.
So he was going to be the one to give rest, a man of rest. So she was the one. Okay, hey, let's put this. We already told this. Let's go put it in motion and get it going.
Oh, you mean she purposely went to him to sell this?
Purposely, because this thing I was hearing said that by doing that, Adoniah, he was making signing his death certificate because Solomon knew if he would have gotten that woman, things could have happened. So that's why he had to die. Part of it.
Yeah. I don't know if mom did that or not, or if she just out of ignorance or niceness was like, oh, let me go talk to my son about it. Because it sounds like the way he's speaking back to her in these verses, at least he's like, let's think about this for a minute, because if I do this, he's my older brother, and therefore this isn't going to end well. And he's also got a priest on his side, and he's got Joab on his side. So he's literally then set up to go, because he already said, hey, all the people already assume I'm the man.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go to the mom, because if I can be nice to the mother, then maybe I can get some favor here.
It isn't interesting. He still, like, we had the three on Solomon's side, the priest, the king, and the prophet. And you got something looking like that on the other side. And don't we have the fake one and all that? We're deceived. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
The unholy trinity.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I wonder too, Joe, to your point of like, if there was like okay, I can't give an inch on this because I'm going to establish, I'm Solomon, I'm the king. Don't ask me for nothing. Like, you can be my brother over there and you can live your own regular life, but you start coming to me and, okay, so today you're going to ask for the wife. Tomorrow you're going to ask for land. The next day you're going to ask for a position. And the next day you're going to try to kill me. So he's like, we're not playing any of the game. Like, you're already, I've been in charge for 10 minutes. You're already asking for stuff. That's not how this is work. I'm the king. If I want you to have something, I'll let you know. Like this other guy, you can live here and I won't kill you. That's the engagement. Where Adonijah is showing up, well, let me get dad's lady and can I get dad's ring? So if it's like on the town, like take an inch, you give him an inch to take a mile. I wonder if that was a part of it too. Of like, wasn't even so much because she was never related. It's not like because if he would have married her, then like he would have had rights to the throne. It would have just made everything more awkward, and then it would have started these conversations and these rumors, and like then it would have been like, well, let me get a little. Well, I have dad's lady, so I would have to put her in his house. Well, she's so used to living in the kingdom, we have to keep the bedroom. I think it was probably more of that than just like this automatic claim to the throne because Solomon's already sitting on it. He's already been anointed. Everything's already happened. So I don't think you can like kind of go back other than it just starts a bad process and a bad precedent of Solomon's weak and will give in to whatever.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So you have that verse, now stuff is clicking, where it talks about in 15, the kingdom was mine and all Israel expected it. So, and then I don't know if she's considered a concubine or not, but then you go back to 2 Samuel talking about Absalom. He took David's concubines too and tried to be king. So it's interesting to see them trying to just take theirs and that goes and makes me next.
Yeah. Who knows? It's all a mess. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's so important for Solomon to establish, hey, by the way, we're not playing because let's say it's 17. That's still a young guy, no matter what time the ages that you're living in. I don't know how much older brother is, but he's kind of like, it's a young whippersnapper, and he's gonna be king.
That's what I can get out of this.
Let me see what I can manipulate here and work. Maybe he's just a dumb guy, and I can kind of work my way. Oh, by the way, I now am king, and you're. Yeah. But yeah.
King Solomon look like a nerd to you?
Good autocorrect.
I was trying to think of dunce, but I couldn't think of dunce, and I didn't want to mess up.
We're in Numbers this week.
Yep. Numbers 1 through 4.
Numbers.
All right, guys, enjoyed it.
Numbers.
Let's head over to numbers for the questions and context.
Questions and answers.
Well,
Context.
maybe.
Questions
Maybe.
and more questions.
Speaking of senses,
Fill up my senses like a name in a name book. What numbers are we on?
1 through 4. So the beginning of Numbers starts off with a lot of numbers. Go figure. And in this section here is the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of the meeting. So inside the tent. So this wasn't a public conversation. Let's see here, we got some dates. The first day of the second month. Very interesting. And in the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt. So it's been a little bit. It's been 360 plus days. Take the census of all the congregation of the peoples of Israel. So then they go, and this census is for number the names of every male head by head from 20 years old and upward.
Mm-hmm.
So, and these guys were all of Israel who are able to go to war. So these are war able human males. So when you're going through this count, sometimes I think we kind of forget that this isn't all people. This wasn't all males, and this wasn't, if you were not like they said when people just got married, you wouldn't have to go to war if you had a disability or whatever. If you already had a priesthood, blah blah blah. So there's a lot of people whenever they're going.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a year later. It's not like they had that many kids in a year, and that they all grew up to be 20 plus. You know what I mean? So all these 20-year-old men up to whatever, like you're too old age. There's a lot of numbers in here.
Yep.
40,000, 50,000, 60,000. I mean, per tribe, 74,000. And if you read the whole chapter 1, it goes all the way to the end of list the tribe, list the people, 12 different times. At the very end, it says all those listed were 603,550. So that's just able-bodied, war-able men. Is 600,000 people, and that's some of our biggest stadiums in the world fit about 100,000. Some of the biggest stadiums. That's 6 of those full to the max of just warriors, dudes ready to go handle business, or able to go to war. So that's where they get those numbers of why there's 1 million plus people that came out, because there's a 600,000 dudes.
Yeah, and here's the other thing for that too is
Another dude.
speaking of a census. I mean, you see here that this is Yahuwah spoke to Moshe saying, "Take of the census."
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at with King David when he took the census. I was almost like God said, "Did I tell you to do that?"
Well, and
What I say?
Excuse me. What'd you say?
I want to leap onto what you just said, because he says from 20 years upward, all that are able to go forth to war. So I need to go back and see what stage he was with David, because if he promised David peace and David's taking a census of all the males, like preparing for war when it's supposed to be a time for peace, then when he brings the angel of death down and kills them, it most likely would be a pretty accurate representation of how many casualties he would have had he gone to war. So I need to go back and look at David and what happens before he takes the census and after that, because it's very clear, like you said, Yahweh told him to take the census for a specific reason, and that reason was to go to war.
Yep. Right. And I think too with David, the fact that it was Hasatan that tempted him or suggested to him to take the census. And he's like, "Hey, that ain't the guy you listen to."
Right.
I love you, and but this is going to be the punishment for what you just did. And the different choices that David had to pick from, none of them were good.
Right.
They were like 3 choices. I'm like, that wasn't even like a slightly bad, almost bad or worse. It's like, no, they're all bad.
You die, they die, everybody dies.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what? And then at the end there of that same chapter 47, it says, "But the Levites were not listed among them." So, God's like, "Hey, here's
poor Levites.
Part of your blessing, part of your obligation is, you're going to be stuck in the temple, but you're also stuck in the temple. Like when we're all going to fight, you get to claim sanctuary. You know, you're like, hey, I'm clergy, I'm Red Cross, whatever you want to call it. I don't.
Oh, sorry. No. Sorry. No, please finish.
No, it's good.
Please finish what you were saying. I just wanted to make sure you guys heard me because it was a.
Everybody heard you, Nick.
I know, but it was an interjection because I remembered something I was going to state about the last stuff we went through. So please finish what you're talking about.
man.
So whenever I honestly think that whenever these priests or the like whenever Azerbaijan, what is the dude's name? Adonijah. Thank you. I can't ever remember that name for some reason. Whenever they keep grabbing onto or going next to the altar, I honest to God believe that I don't think it's like a physical thing. Well, he may be touching it. It's because it's sanctuary. It's because it's a holy ground, basically. Sanctuary.
That's what I said last week.
Yeah. Oh, it is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wasn't paying attention. You drone on sometimes.
Well, and you got to know that, like,
I'm just kidding.
there was actually horns on the altar.
Yeah, there is.
Right.
So
right.
they're
So
like-
he's literally like grabbing. Yeah.
It's like holding on to the door of the church.
Right.
I'm here.
I'm here.
Base,
I'm here.
home.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm free.
No, you can't freeze me. No freeze.
Yeah. No free tag. Right. No freezies.
Well, think about it. You cannot spill human
Right.
blood at the altar.
Right. But it's funny because Solomon's like,
So they're smart.
kill-
I mean,
kill
I'll be
him
honest with you,
where
they're
he
smart. Hey, don't do it. Don't do it.
Right.
No, they just grabbed him and pulled him off.
You
and
ain't
they're like,
breaking me. You ain't breaking my chain.
we're not going to stab you because there's no blood here.
Right. We're going to black
Hey,
you
what's
out,
that?
though.
What's that behind you?
Oh my God, what's over there in the bushes?
But here's the other part. You know, like, I mean, I know we're not really talking about it, but we'll let the Levites be the connection point. Why were they inside of the Holy of Holies in the first place?
Right.
What is Adonijah and other dudes
Right.
doing there? Like, that's why, you know, every once in a while you kind of realize, is the Holy Spirit, is God still enveloping the tent, the tabernacle, the temple, whatever, and still covering it? Because
Right.
how did you get in there?
And why were they not burned to a cinder?
Exactly. What did you touch? Or not? I know it's not the
Vapor.
Ark of the Covenant, it's the
Right,
altar. So
yeah.
that's a different thing. But still, like, this shouldn't be a just regular dude show up and start grabbing
Right.
stuff. Like, go away. Where was the guards, the Levites? You know?
Right. Dude dressed as not a dude playing a priest.
So yeah, it wasn't the Holy of Holies. I messed that up. The altar was not.
Yeah.
Right.
outside. But still,
But again, it's still the altar.
yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I don't think the altar was off limits. I mean, you would bring your sacrifice meat
Sure.
offerings to the
Yeah.
Levite priest who
Still,
was
still just sounded weird.
Yeah.
But it was probably the only place you could have went other than, to not die. You go into the Holy of Holies, you just
Oh,
ask for it.
like
And if it was the altar, I mean, if the fire was burning 24/7, I mean, I don't know. I just have a lot of questions with that. I'm like, what do you grab? Anything burn? You're grabbing onto like a fire pit? Like, no, grab onto the fence post or something. What are you doing?
I grabbed a skillet the other day.
Like I said, though, these are men out of desperation,
Oh,
and so desperate times.
I messed up. I know I messed up.
By the way, can I have the virgin? I mean, no. Oh.
I should have just shut up and went away. I thought I could get one more piece out of this.
Right.
So anyway,
All right, and then chapter 2, and you guys
we
don't mind,
digress.
ask your questions here.
Way down there.
Now's the time for 1 through 4 numbers. So one, I think the numbers are very interesting because they're all like whole numbers, and we talked about that before. Of like, seems like God's just very comfortable with rounding.
Right.
When there's like, hey, you don't need to tell me each individual human. Like, I don't need to know every single one, but let me know in the hundreds. Let me know in like the 50s. Something where like, we can actually count. Can you imagine Moses out there with a ancient abacus trying to get
Right.
down to the one person?
He's missing the leg side.
Like the one guy was out, in the bathroom and forgot to check in. They're like, oh man, we messed up. We were supposed to get it perfect.
There's a giant stork.
Hold on 1 second, everybody. Just 1 second.
But yeah, so then all the numbers around it, and then chapter 2, it's talking about the arrangement. So like I'm talking about, like the front, the back, the left, the right, who's where. And I know it goes into what is it, like Judah is the first one out of the camp, and know, some people use that of like, oh, well, that's why Judah has to be more special. That's why Judah has all this extra stuff. You know, this is just battle arrangement. This is just transportation.
Well, but why does it say specific areas? Like if I think it says the east side or facing the east or something like that. What's the significance of that? Because if they noted it, that's pretty significant, right?
That what's on the east side.
Oh, yeah.
That you shall be let's see. Tell them to go and face the east or face the west.
What verse are you at?
The whole chapter 2. It's just saying
Oh.
where everybody's at.
On the
Oh.
west side, like why would they go and say that if it wasn't important?
No, I think it was super important.
Yeah.
But it was important for them to have proper order in the desert. You know, you got obviously 600,000 men plus all the women, children, and young and old people. You got 1 million plus, 2 million plus people, and you got to have some structure.
So that's what this was. This
Yeah.
is teaching structure.
Yes, this is hey,
Okay.
whenever because the cloud would move. So you know, one day you wake up and the cloud's 14 miles down the road. You're like, all right,
No.
tear down the whole tabernacle. You get the rings, you get the poles, you get the sheets.
It's like
Judah go
teaching,
first. You take the ark, you take this, and everybody has to go out.
it's like teaching kids to walk in the line when they go down the hall at school.
Yeah.
And how society run right and left
Right.
side.
But
Okay.
you can
all right.
see people who've done renditions of this made, drawings of
Mhm.
the all the different camps around the tabernacle, and there could be some significance to the order in which they're placed around that, which I think it is. I think everything our Heavenly Father does is purposeful. I think through this, you're also going to see. You can also pick up on the priestly calendar as a part of all this. So there's a lot. I know when we read at face value, oh well, Judah was on the east side, and where this says as the sun comes up, and then later on it says on the west side, the banner of the camp of Ephraim according to their divisions, and then as you go further down, everyone's got a place. I also think it's also going back to order. Say, okay, you guys are here, you're not here, and you're not over here. You guys are here, and I think there's a very good purpose for all that. Again, I think this goes back to order. It can go back to the calendar. It can go back to a lot of different things that he has in here. Go.
Yeah, I think a big one that until probably this last couple of years, I would have never even considered. But I think God on the throne is way cooler than we give him credit for sometimes. He's looking ahead 7,000 years or whatever New Jerusalem is, looking back and saying, hey, by the way, Judah, you want to be on this side. Hey, Levi, you want to be over here. Hey, Naphtali, you're going to be over there. Because when he's bringing the kingdom down with the 12 gates that are the pearls and it has a name of each tribe on, he's like, I already know where you're going to end up. So y'all start setting yourself up this way now. And this is an early picture. That's why whenever we have the 12 Testament, 12 patriarchs, they're like, oh yeah, we already know we're going to be dying. We're going to Sheol. We're going to rest with our fathers. You're going to be part of this. We're going to be part of that. This is they know all this cool, significant stuff of like the future.
Right.
But how? Well, I think in this stuff, that's the boring stuff. That, like you said, why here? Why here? Why here? Why here? And you're like, God's like, dude, because that's how the kingdom's going to be set up. So you guys are already in your proper order and proper fashion, but you don't even know it yet. You're representing something that you couldn't know in a time way later. And I think when Moses said he was able to see the kingdom, he was able to see the land. I think he got a like prophetic vision almost of like, oh, so I'm gonna die. Got it here. But then that's what it's going to look like in the long run. So all this stuff was practice pretend, the shadow, because there is a real and a fullness to come. So when Moses was given this vision of like, all right, yeah, you go here and you go here, because that's what this is going to look like. That this is a real thing. This isn't just pretend like, let's do alphabetical order, 1, 2, 3, all eyes on me. He's like, let's actually do some stuff because this is the correct answer. And that it's just been in the last year or two that I've even kind of put those two, the end of the Bible to the front of the Bible, and actually connected them. Of like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Could this, and because everything, like you said, this boring has to have some kind of significance. So
This is actually
going-
some of the most
everything.
interesting stuff in the
going
Bible.
though with as you
I
said,
was getting boring.
Right. Oh yeah.
with New Jerusalem coming
Oh,
down,
bunny rabbit.
maybe we go on way too far. But even with the numbers, could that be telling that hey? I know we don't know how many people make it, but could it be an idea of like this tribe? I don't know.
Well, we have the one number we know is 144,000, and whatever that is, knows 12,000 from each tribe.
Yeah.
So there's going to be whatever that is, and that might be like all the headships or like the priests or per se. I mean, I know the priests are supposed to be Levites or people from the order of Zadok, but
Okay, they're not. Yeah.
But I get your point though, because it says narrow is the road and few will find it. These numbers are few compared to the billions of people on the earth. This kind of makes more sense. Like, I think there's like, oh yeah, kingdom's gonna be just full. Everybody's going to heaven.
Each tribe, maybe.
You're like, no, I mean, it's got to be more than that.
Yeah,
That's what the Mormons believe
Yeah.
that it's.
Miss Fariba had a question. So, and also Melody, Shabbat Shalom, Melody, and the Hernandez family. So, Miss Fariba says it was brought to you, Hernandez, brought to you in part by Sabbath.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. It says it was brought to my attention that the numbers 603,550 and numbers 146 also is in Exodus 38:26. Is that the same people being counted?
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Same people group that came out. So yeah.
Well, a lot of it, we know Exodus and Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, they're all kind of overlapping. Like Deuteronomy is retelling of stuff that already happened. Numbers is just more accounting and stuff like that. The Leviticus is like, hey, priest, this is what y'all got to handle. So it's kind of all, those stories are overlapping a lot. They're all like, what do you want to call it? Like the time.
Right.
How much
Yeah.
time is between Exodus and Numbers?
Well, you got a year. Yeah.
A year.
Okay,
Yeah.
That would make sense then.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I
So
think it's right.
Melody said, but remember when Yeshua fed to 5,000, they only counted the head of house. Exactly. So
Right.
the 600,000 plus
Mm.
is the 20-year and older men. And so that's why we come up with anywhere. Well, it would have to be more than 1.2 million. Some people say 1.2 million. Well, I was thinking it'd be more than that.
Right.
Because even with households, and let me say, when they were having babies, it wasn't like it was a family of one or one or two. These are probably big families.
That's why they were getting oppressed.
Right. I
Because
know.
they were having too many kids.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah,
7 each? No.
Yeah. The new Pharaoh comes and goes, oh, what's happening here?
Sorry, sir, we're trying to get them, but they're having the baby
And,
so fast.
Yeah, the handmaids are like, look, man, all I can tell you is that the kid's already out and the bill of cord's cut when we show up. So what do you know we can do for you?
They're already crying and drinking milk. What do you want me to do?
They're already out there pulling the plow. So, yeah, so it's a lot of people. I mean, and you think about it, because if it was, some people have speculated, it was like way less. It was only like maybe 100,000. It came out. like, with the size of Egypt and how long Egypt has been around, why would the new Pharaoh come in and look at a group over there and go, oh my gosh, they're so massive?
Right.
100,000? That's nothing.
Right.
Now, you got over 1 million people.
Right.
Like you just said, even our largest stadiums in the world, the largest ones maybe hold 100,000 people. So now we're talking about, was that 130, 200 stadiums of these people. And you're like, now I can see when the new Pharaoh shows up and goes, oh, hold on.
Right.
Them? They're not with us, or they're a different group? Oh, I can't have that, man. Because what he would have to look at something that would make him go, hold on,
right.
Wait a minute.
What's the population of like a whole state in America?
Right.
Today,
Right.
in today's time. 2+
So I
million
love it
people.
when the experts come in and they try to down. Oh no, it was like maybe 300,000 people
Right.
at the most. Like, no. This was a troop movement and a half.
Right.
So
Which that means God had to have been. He's like, it's about the outstretched arm.
yeah.
You got all these people you got to feed. You got all these people they got to walk. You got to find. They can't be on these little mini, one-person paths. They got to have a path that's at least
Right.
10 horses wide or something, so they can get all their carts and donkeys and kids.
Donkey.
You got to make sure no kids get lost.
Sorry. It's where all the tribes went and whose land was whose.
Oh yeah.
Pretty neat.
So yeah, it was
Donkey.
definitely a lot of people. And
Right.
so can you imagine the people? I don't think we truly understand the stress that Moshe's under, and that's why when Jethro comes to him, Jethro's like, "Hey, dude, you cannot take your entire day every day to sit down and teach people the Torah. Get your elders, get the people in charge of the different, the groups and all that, and then." Then we see from there, of course, the portion is given to them, and they're all growing and everything else. But
Right.
yeah, it's
So-
a lot.
So Tyler Porter says, when God said, "Be fruitful and multiply," they said, "Okay."
Yeah.
Yes, sir. How many would you like?
Mission accomplished.
Fill your quiver until you get tired of throwing the arrows.
Yeah. Oh boy.
But God, I'm good. One more.
I always love looking into names of the 12 tribes because you've got Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Naphtali, Dan.
Right.
It's like they
Dan.
call me Dan.
I wonder what
Oh,
is
great
it,
Israelite Dan.
is it Dan in Hebrew? Or what would it be in Hebrew?
I looked that up. I think those are their names.
Oh, that's right.
So yeah, because I looked up because I wanted to see if they had a name change like Israel did.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I've got the scriptures here. It just says Dan.
Dan is Dan.
Don,
Dan, what is it, Dan?
Dan. It's not even
Lieutenant Dan?
It's just Dan.
Lieutenant Dan, you got your legs back.
So yeah, we got the sons of Aaron.
Lieutenant Dan.
Aaron, you got Nadab. Oh, I didn't know Nadab was the firstborn. Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar.
Mhm.
Well, what's cool is I found one of them that broke them down to. So first son of Reuben, first son of Jacob, Simeon the second son of Jacob, Levi the third son of Jacob, known for his priestly role, fourth son of Jacob. This one isn't even as in depth. The other one I was just looking at also broke down. So first son, eighth son of Jacob, third son of Rachel, or second son of Rachel.
Mhm.
It was breaking them down. I was like, whoa, that's pretty neat.
We did that in Jubilees for sure. When
Yeah.
we did all those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was interesting to see, like, okay, you got 4 wives, and then like which wives had which kids at which time. And then it actually kind of talked about the ladies, and they were like, why were they upset, and why did it take Rachel so long to have a kid? Well, because she was salty.
All the Jacob
And God was
ladies.
like, get your life together, and you can have all the
Yep.
kids. And Leah's like, I'm just homely and sweet. I might got weak eyes, whatever that means, but I'm taking care of business. God's blessing me with the children. Rachel, stop being dumb.
Right.
You know, I'm trying to help you out. You got Mr. Jacob here. He's
Yeah.
trying.
Well, the crazy part is you can see that's a
Some
good
love
example of
apples.
not walking in the spirit of Yah.
Mm.
And Yah's like, shut.
Which is hilarious
No.
because Jacob, that was the one that he picked. He's like, I
Right.
want that one.
Right.
I was like, yeah, but Leah's the one that you need.
Right.
That's the one you want. Now you can have, you don't have to work, but we'll make this all work out for
I got what you need.
you. Oh, Rachel, you.
Right. Got what I want. What's her other sister's name?
Leah.
Leah's what I need. Anyways,
And
I'm not drinking Mountain Dew no more before we do this. Puts me in a weird mind.
it's not a Mountain Dew, Nick.
I know.
Anyway,
It's a
Then
weird
go
mind.
back to what y'all talked about in Anchor's Truth, chapter 4, verse 45.
Don't spoil it for me. I haven't watched it yet.
It wasn't good.
Really?
And the number of men and families, whatever, and according to the commandment of the Lord through Moses, everything goes back to that.
Yep.
Reminder.
It is interesting, like how many times God's like even in Kings, he was talking about the commandment from the king was then the king was set up by the Lord. So as long as the king's doing what he's supposed to do, his word's pretty solid. And so yeah, all throughout Scripture, you can imagine like Moses was like, "Oh, God told me to make you in charge and to put you in this side and you in charge of the stuff," but I didn't feel like it. Like God's like, "Dude, I commanded you. You better say yes and get it done." So yeah, I'm glad that at this time at least they were still doing some good things. When we're talking about the priests, something that we brought up many times, chapter 4, verse 38, those listed of the sons of Gershon by their clans in their father's house from 30 years up to 50 years. So that everyone who could come on duty for service in the tent of meeting, those listed by their clans and their fathers, and it was a number. But it is interesting that like for the priesthood, God's like, I only want you guys for a certain time period. I want
Mhm.
optimal humans.
right.
And what's kind of almost hilarious is our modern world. It's hey, once you're 18, 19, 20, that's your prime. Supposedly to the world. If you're going to join the NFL, the NBA, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's those years. And God's like, actually, I don't really even want to talk to you till you're 30.
Right.
Before then, you need to be learning from dad.
Yep.
You need to be getting your wives, your kids, your land. You need to be building, establishing yourself as a human.
Right.
Now that you're a successful human being, now you can enter the service, and now you can be a part of what I want you to be, because you're not going to be that young, dumb, wild, all over the place doing dumb. I need you to have some brains about you. So it's kind of funny, like I've been below 30 more recently than the rest of everybody. But when I was 20, 25, I was like, I got it. And God was like, I believe you, son. Wait till you're 30. There's some more lessons you can learn. There's some more life that you can live. There's some more wisdom you can ascertain. And whenever you are a little bit older, you'll be even better. And it's not because there's anything wrong with you. It's just because life is experience. And then at the same time, after 50, he was like, hey, now you're at that stage where you got grandkids. Now you're at that stage where your knees hurt. Now you're at the stage where, you know, it's hard to get up out of bed. I appreciate you. And what I'm going to have you do is actually be the coach now. I'm going to have you show up and help the younger guys make it work. But I don't need you in here working full-time shift anymore. I don't need you in here busting your back to try to get life together. Now's a good time to go home and help out with the family. Now's a good time to go get your goats and your sheep and start, you know, building for the next generation.
Yeah.
Because it's a process that is supposed to be self-replicating. And in our world today, it's very much like you got one dude just working his butt off and then the kids are done. And he's like, no, at a certain point, stop working so hard.
Right.
And start helping out the next generation because they've got more longevity. They've got more time to put in.
We've talked about this at where I work because so I'm 45 years old. I am the youngest person on the maintenance staff. There are guys on maintenance that have been there since before I was born. I work up at a place called Flex. It used to be Husqvarna up in Orangeburg. And what's interesting to me is I'm the young guy on the crew at 45 years old. And they said they've had other younger like crowd, but it's just like that whole mentorship aspect of how men used to be and women used to be, like it's gone the way of the dodo. You don't have mentorships anymore, or internships, or any of that type of stuff. At least not in America, anyways.
Well, we have exposure as teachers.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, it's this kind of stuff, you gotta go and search it out and find somebody.
Right. Yep.
And who wants to do that?
Right. Exactly.
Well, that's why the
Yeah.
challenge is both is two-sided. The older people got to be willing to put the time and patience in. The younger people have to be willing to be told, you know, shared some information with. Hey, young man, young woman, you messed it up. Hey, you're doing something interesting, but that path is going to lead you here.
Right.
Now, if you're comfortable with that, if you want to lose, keep going. But this is where wisdom's at. This is how, you know, and I think both sides, you know, older people have gotten, I don't want to talk to these young kids. They think they know it all. I ain't got time for them. And then young kids are like, you're old. What do you know?
Right.
You know, you can't even unlock your phone.
Miss Reba asked a question. She says, what does Numbers 3:48 mean? Those who are in excess.
Mine says those who are over you. Or those who are over.
Where is this?
348, right?
Yep.
That's just where they were given the shekels from the previous verse too, right?
For the what?
In the previous verse,
Mhm.
above that, it says give them that.
Right.
So they get it.
And you shall give the silver, the ransom of those who are in excess among them, to Aaron and his sons.
See mine say, and thou shalt give the money wherewith the odd number of them is to be redeemed unto Aaron and to his sons. So if you have an odd number of coins, you give the odd ones or the odd one. So let's say I have 47, I give the 47th one.
And it was confusing how this.
Yeah.
The AMP, I don't know if this helps. AMP says, and give the money to ransom, purchase redemption price of those who outnumber the Levites to Aaron and his sons.
That makes sense. So it's saying in the excess of the firstborns that are more than what the Levites have, that they're to take up a collection basically of the silver, and that money that's taken up is to be given to the priest. So that makes sense.
That looks dangerous. Is that hot? Yep. Touch it. Nope. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Spent the whole morning.
All right, guys, we are, wish we had more time to dig into that. But we are at almost 10 after 4. So I enjoyed it today with the Bible study. Everyone being here. Thank you for the Bible scriptures as always. Anyway, blessings to you. Jonathan will take us out with some prayer. We'll be back here in about an hour for the sermon today. And so it's going to be interesting. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, blessings to you. Jonathan, go ahead.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the day. Thank you for the scriptures. I thank you so much that even though there was a lot to cover, we get to keep our Bibles. We get to hold on to them. We don't have to wait to go to church or to synagogue or someplace where someone is a gatekeeper to the information, that we have our own Bibles and probably tons of them in our houses, on our phones, and available to us all the time. So I just thank you for that fact, and I pray that we don't take it lightly. Everybody through the scriptures, all the way through the New Testament, didn't have the access that we have today, and I just thank you for that ability. And I just pray that we hold ourselves accountable to what that means, that we've been given more than any of the people in the Bible, and we should take that seriously and be appreciative of what we do have, and really dig into these words and try to live like your Son, the Messiah, through the help of your Holy Spirit, the Helper, to keep us in line and to keep us pointed in the right direction, oriented towards you and your ways. I pray all these things in your Son's holy name, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, family. Shalom to you. We'll see some of you here back here in just a little bit.
Shalom.